after the US moved to impose 100% tariffs on Chinese EVs and proposed banning Chinese EV software and hardware due to unwarranted security concerns, followed by the EU's recent decision to enact significant tariffs on Chinese EVs. Some hawkish Australian politicians couldn't sit still. During Senate estimates on Monday, Liberal Senator James Paterson questioned whether Australia could become a dumping ground for Chinese EVs when other countries were putting up barriers, tariffs or other protections, as reported by an Australian media outlet. Cybersecurity Minister Tony Burke reportedly sought advice over his own Chinese EV and was told to take precautions to mitigate any national security concerns. The hysteria from certain Australian voices is obvious. Are they attempting to create a man-made earthquake regarding Australia's China policy? They have become so accustomed to Washington's anti-China playbook that they are vigorously performing to serve the US geopolitical agenda. As Chinese EVs have become a buzzword recently, these Australian voices have quickly followed suit, overstretching the concept of security and disparaging Chinese EVs. In September, the coalition in Australia already called for more urgent action against Chinese EVs, prompting the Albanese government to respond that it was closely monitoring moves in the US and was in talks with the Biden administration about any local implications. Chen Hong, a professor and executive director of the Asia-Pacific Studies Center at East China Normal University, believes that the voices from certain politicians have served to opportunist purposes. On one hand, they aim to attack their political opponents, and on the other, they seek to attract more political attention by exploiting anything related to China. But after all, this exposes the nature of some Australian politicians. They care only about their political career and little, if at all, about their country's interests. Have they ever read the document, Australian Government Climate Change Commitments, Policies and Programs, released in February this year, which lays out the country's vision to achieve net zero emissions by 2050 and to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 43% below 2005 levels by 2030, and how to achieve the goals? One of the strategies is the National Electric Vehicle Strategy, which aims to increase the uptake of EVs by increasing the supply of affordable and accessible EVs, establishing the resources, systems and infrastructure to enable rapid EV uptake, and encouraging increased EV demand. The import of Chinese EVs can certainly contribute to the realization of Australia's goals. Currently, 42% of Chinese-built vehicles sold in Australia are electric. Scott Dwyer from the University of Technology Sydney's Institute for Sustainable Futures was quoted in the Australian media stating that the increase in Chinese-manufactured EVs is benefiting Australia. Qin Sheng, a research fellow at the Centre for Australia, New Zealand and South Pacific Studies, Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, told the Global Times that while Australia's import of Chinese EVs is beneficial to both China and Australia, it has deeper implications for Australia. Australia is the main provider of lithium, of which the most common type of EV battery is made. If the sales of Chinese EVs are affected by US and EU tariffs and possible bans, the export of Australian lithium will be affected as well, said Qin. He added that some Australian politicians' tendency to overstretch the concept of security is a typical behaviour that manipulates security issues to hinder economic cooperation, which will only harm Australia itself and undermine the current hard-won positive momentum of China-Australia relations. It is clear how Australia should choose between the geopolitical anxieties constructed by Washington and its own concrete interests.